Welcome back to our series, How to Pray. My name is Avraham Apatow, and today we're speaking about Maaseh Bereshit, which means the secrets of creation. And we're doing this in the context of the blessings for the Shema prayer. In our last presentation, we began our discussion of the structure of the morning prayer service in the Jewish tradition. And we explained that this structure is parallel to the way that the ancient people understood the cosmos. In this picture, the cosmos is divided into three levels: the earthly, the intermediary, which is the realm of the stars, the planets, constellations, and then the divine. And so in our last presentation, we discussed how the blessings and prayers in the section called Psuke de Zimra, which are praises to God, represent the earthly level in this cosmic ladder of ascent. So today we're starting the second rung on this ladder, which is the blessings of the Shema. Now the first blessing that opens this section is called the Yotzer Or, which we'll just translate, and it says, "Blessed praise to God that you are the former of light and the creator of darkness. You make peace or wholeness, and you create everything." Now we can see that this blessing relates directly to the opening of the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, and the discussion of the creation of the universe. And so Genesis, the book of creation, begins with this dramatic statement, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, one day." The Torah tells us that we should recite the Shema when we rise and when we go to bed. And the rabbis have instituted that the proper time for saying the Shema prayer or declaration of faith is the moment before what's called Netz HaChama, the moment before the break of dawn, when the first light of the sun bursts out over the horizon. That first moment of light is an echo back to that first moment of creation and the statement, "Let there be light." And one important thing to point out, that when we begin this blessing, we're, as it were, taken through a passageway into another dimension, because our prayers have begun from the earthly realm, and we describe David HaMelech, his prayers describing the providence of a God in the earthly world, and how David HaMelech had this power to capture the nature of the human condition upon the earth. But here, we're seeing life from a different perspective. We're seeing it from the heavenly perspective, from the God's eye view, from the Creator who makes light and darkness. So from the earthly perspective, light and darkness, good and evil, are in a constant battle, a constant war. And this is the domain of David HaMelech, the great warrior. He's in the midst of this battle between light and darkness, both within the human condition and in actual warfare. However, here we're discussing light and darkness from a higher perspective, from God's perspective, as the creator of the entire universe that includes light and dark, good and evil. God is able to see how all of these elements fit together as a whole, and through his power, he's able to make shalom, completion from everything. This blessing is then followed by a beautiful poetic description about how God's light and wisdom fill the world, that God illuminates the earth for all that dwell upon it. He renews each day the creation. Ma rabu ma'asecha, how great are your works. Hashem. Kulam b'chachma asita. Everything you made with wisdom. That His light, His wisdom, His intelligence fills the whole world. And this paragraph continues the theme of light and the creation of lights 5 or 6 times. So we can see that this is really the main theme of the opening of this section. Now, between this opening blessing and then the second blessing, there's a paragraph devoted to what's called the Kedusha. There's an introduction to the Kedusha, which is sections from the Tanakh describing how the angels bless Hashem. And that is introduced by a discussion of God's creating these spiritual divine helpers as part of the creation. So one of the interesting questions is, why is this placed right here in this introductory blessings to the Shema? The reason we can see is because the theme of this whole section is the Maaseh Bereshit, the description of the creation of the universe. So the creation of the universe begins with the creation of the lights, the heavens, and so forth. But an essential part of that creation are all the spiritual forces that direct God's will and His power throughout nature. And as we described in our presentations on Jewish cosmology, that in the ancient picture, you have God, the creator of all, and He relates to His world through intermediaries, through angelic forces, a hierarchy of various armies of angels from the highest spiritual level that extend their power throughout the heavens and the earth. And they are working also within a system of spirituality that is established around the stars and the planets, because in this picture, the stars and the planets have souls and intelligences, as is described very specifically in Rambam in his Mishnah Torah. In other words, nature is alive, and the higher aspects of nature, just like animals that have souls, also these higher aspects of nature, the planets, the stars, these life-giving bodies, they are filled with the power of life through their own souls and their own profound intelligence and wisdom. So the heart of this section of the angels describes the prayers, 2 different verses that describe prayers of angels. The first is from Yeshaya, and that's the famous line that says, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvaot, Melokot Kavodo. That is, holy, 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 the Lord of hosts, your glory fills the whole world. The second verse is from Yechezkel, and it says, Baruch Kavod, Hashem Memokomo. Praise is the glory of God, or the Lord, from His place. Now, these 2 verses of praise are related to different kinds of angels. The first relates to the angels that are on the highest level. These angels are called the Seraphim. The second group of angels are called the Chayot and Ophanim. Now these 2 groups of angels are separated. And in order to appreciate that, we have to review quickly the picture of the ancient cosmos. We have the earth in the center of a sphere. And looking out at the constellations then would be the inner wall of that sphere that move around the inner globe. Therefore, the wall of that sphere would then be a dividing point between the cosmos, the realm of the infinite, the realm of the finite, creation, and the exterior being representing the infinite. And the meeting place between them is the meeting place between the Creator God and His world. Now, that realm between is the realm of the Seraphim. they somehow are able to bridge that border between the finite and the infinite. And at that very place is called the throne of God. And we're going to discuss that in the next presentation in more detail, what the throne of God is. But for our purposes right now, we need to see that there's the seraphim that are grasping the infinite. And then the chayot and the ophanim, they're working from the edge, the last, greatest, highest point of the finite creation. And what is the reason? Because the Malbim explains in his commentary on Yechezkel that the seraphim, they transfer the power of God as the ultimate power of motion in the universe. They transfer that power from that infinite dimension into the finite dimension through the chayot that are able to move the ophanim, because ophanim means the wheels, and those are the wheels that are the spiritual power of all the motions of the heavens. So this system of angels, the seraphim, the chayot and ophanim, they are the very spiritual mechanism for the movement of all the heavens. And this is why this is so important and appropriate right here, because we're talking about that first moment of creation when light emerges, and that light emerging each day is a consequence of the motions of the heavens. So in our next presentation, we're going to discuss more specifically the meaning of these verses and how it relates to the structure of the cosmos, and what is this profound concept of the throne of God. We'll discuss that in a lot more detail and then continue on to the rest of the blessings.